This video is about using properties of quadrilaterals to solve for a missing variable and proving that a quadrilateral is a parallelogram, rectangle, rhombus, or square. So there are a few conditions for a parallelogram to exist. The first is if both pairs of opposite sides are parallel, then it is a quadrilateral. So if BC is parallel to AD and AB is parallel to CD, this would be a parallelogram. The next one is if one pair of opposite sides is both parallel and congruent. It needs both because if it's parallel, we don't know if it's a trapezoid or not. So they have to be parallel and congruent. It can happen on the top sides or on the left or right. If both pairs of opposite sides are congruent, then it is a parallelogram. If both pairs of opposite angles are congruent, then it's a quadrilateral. So if angle B is congruent to angle D and angle A is congruent to angle C, then it would be a quadrilateral. If an angle of a quadrilateral is supplementary to both consecutive angles, then it is also a parallelogram. So for example, if B was 100, A was 80, and C was 80, these would be supplementary, these would be supplementary, so it would be a quadrilateral. And lastly, if the diagonals of a quadrilateral bisect each other, then it's a parallelogram. So if our diagonals here bisect each other, remember that all four pieces are not going to be equal because one diagonal is going to be longer than the other, but they are bisecting or cutting each in half. So determine if each is a quadrilateral. If each quadrilateral is a parallelogram, justify your answers. So right now we know that BC is congruent to AD. If we look at these angles, because they are same side interior angles that are supplementary, that makes the bases parallel. So in this case, yes, this is a parallelogram because one set of opposite sides is both parallel and congruent. In number 2, we see that B is congruent to D and A is congruent to C. So yes, this is a parallelogram because one set of opposite sides, opposite angles, because two sets of opposite angles are congruent. In number 3, BC is congruent to AD and AB is congruent to CD. So yes, this is a parallelogram because two sets of opposite sides are congruent. In number 4, we have that the top sides are parallel and the other sides are congruent, but they're not on the same side, so this would not be a parallelogram. So no, not a parallelogram, because parallel and congruent is not the same set of sides. Number 5, we have that A is congruent to C. This angle here, ABC, is congruent to DCA, which makes those alternate interior angles, so those lines are parallel. So we have two sets of parallel sides, so yes, this is a parallelogram. In number 4, we have these angles that are congruent to each other with the diagonals drawn in. So if I add these angles because they have the same markings, they would be congruent. So yes, this is a parallelogram because two sets of opposite angles are congruent. Now, we can use slopes to determine what type of shape we have. So when we have 4 vertices, we have to find 6 slopes to figure out what shape we have. So we're going to use the 4 sides and the 2 diagonals to find 6 slopes. Remember that quadrilaterals, we're not going to have any relationship between these. If it is a parallelogram, our opposite sides are going to be parallel. If it is a rectangle, our opposite sides are parallel, our adjacent sides are perpendicular. If it is a rhombus, our opposite sides are parallel, our diagonals are perpendicular. If it's a square, then our adjacent sides are going to be perpendicular, our diagonals are also going to be perpendicular. If it is a kite, we are not going to have anything with the opposite sides or the adjacent sides, but our diagonals are perpendicular. And in a trapezoid, we have one set of opposite sides parallel. So the 4 that we are going to focus on, though, are parallelogram, rectangle, rhombus, and square. So you want to find your 6 slopes and then look at the sides to determine which shape we have. So we want to find the slopes of the sides first. So our quadrilateral is A, B, C, D. So first we want to start with the opposite side. So I'm going to find the slope of AB, -4 minus 16, -12 minus -2. So that gets us -20 over -10, which reduces to 2. The other opposite side is CD. 20 minus 0 over 20 minus 10 gets us 20 over 10, which reduces to 2. So those are parallel so far. But I want to find my second set of sides before I can determine anything. So I want to find the sides of AD, which is going to be 20 minus 16 and 20 minus -2. Gets us 4 over 22, which is 2 over 11. And our slope BC. 0 minus -4, 10 minus -12. So that's going to get us 4 over 22, which is 2 over 11. Now, the 2 sets of opposite sides are parallel, but I want to look at these 2 sides together, 2 and 2 over 11. This means that the sides are not perpendicular. So now we want to look at the slopes of the diagonals. So AC, we have 0 minus 16 and 10 minus -2, which gets us -16 over 12, which is -4/3. Our slope of BD, we have 20 minus -4 over 20 minus -12, which gets us 24 over 32, which reduces to 3 over 4. These are opposite reciprocals, which means that the diagonals are perpendicular. So if we have perpendicular diagonals but not perpendicular sides, this is a rhombus. So let's look at another set. J, K, L, M. So first we're going to look at our sides. We have the sides JK, 7 minus 4 over 2 minus 2. Gets us 3 over 0, which is undefined. Our slope of LM is 4 minus 7 over 10 minus 10, which is -3 over 0, which is also undefined. So right now those lines are parallel. Then we want to look at JM. So 4 minus 4 over 10 minus 2 gets us 0 over 8, which is 0. Our slope of KL, 7 minus 7 over 10 minus 2, gets us 0 over 8, which is 0. So remember that undefined lines are vertical lines and zero lines are horizontal, which means that these sides are going to be perpendicular. So remember the two shapes that have perpendicular sides are going to be a rectangle and a square. So now we want to look at the diagonals. We have JL and KM. 7 minus 4 over 10 minus 2 equals 3 over 8. And for KM, 4 minus 7 over 10 minus 2, which gets us negative 3 over 8. These are not opposite reciprocals, so the diagonals are not perpendicular, which means that the only shape this could be is a rectangle. In number 3, we have the vertices A, B, C, and D. First, we're going to find the slopes of AB. 8 minus 4 over 6 minus negative 1 gets us 4 over 7. And CD, 2 minus 6 over 5 minus 12 gets us negative 4 over negative 7, which reduces to 4/7. Then we have AD, which is 2 minus 4 over 5 minus negative 1. That gets us negative 2 over 6, which is negative 1/3. And BC is 6 minus 8 over 12 minus 6, which is also negative 2 over 6, negative 1/3. So 4 over 7 and negative 1/3 are not opposite reciprocals, so that means these sides are not perpendicular. Now we want to look at the diagonal to figure out, are we a rhombus or a parallelogram? So we want the slope of AC, 6 minus 4 over 12 minus negative 1, which gets us 2 over 13. And our slope of BD, which is 2 minus 8 over 5 minus 6. That gets us negative 6 over negative 1, which is negative 6. The diagonals are not perpendicular. So if neither are perpendicular, but the opposite sides are parallel, this again is a parallelogram. So in number 4, we have the shape RSTU. So first we want to find the slope of RS. 5 minus negative 3 over 0 minus negative 2 gets us 8 over 2, which is 4. We have our slope of TU, negative 5 minus 3 over 6 minus 8 gets us negative 8 over negative 2, which reduces to 4. When we look for the slope of RU, negative 5 minus negative 3, 6 minus negative 2 gets us negative 2 over 8, which is negative 1/4. Our slope of ST, 3 minus 5 over 8 minus 0 gets us negative 2 over 8, negative 1/4. So in this case, our sides are perpendicular because these slopes are opposite reciprocals. If we look at the slopes of the diagonals, so we have the slope of RT, 3 minus negative 3 over 8 minus negative 2 gets us 6 over 10, which reduces to 3/5. Our slope of SU is negative 5 minus 5 over 6 minus 0, which gets us negative 10 over 6, which reduces to negative 5/3. So here the diagonals are perpendicular, and because both are perpendicular, that means we have a square.